You probably heard it. Ugh, another social justice warrior. Sometimes it's said with admiration, but more often it's used as an insult, a punchline, a way to dismiss someone, not because they're wrong, but because they care too much. But where did this term even come from? Is it fair? Is it helpful? And should you be proud or ashamed to be called a social justice warrior? Let's go beyond the memes and misunderstandings and talk about what it really means. So, where did the term come from? The phrase social justice warrior didn't start as a joke. Originally, it described people who fought for fairness, equity in education, opportunity, civil rights, and dignity for the marginalized. People like union organizers demanding better wages, activists campaigning for racial justice, lawyers fighting discriminatory laws. The warrior part wasn't about anger, it was about courage. But then the internet happened. By the early 2010s, especially on platforms like Reddit and Twitter, SJW became a sarcastic term. It was no longer about fighting injustice. It was about performing righteousness. Calling someone an SJW became a shortcut for, you're too sensitive, you're always offended, you're just trying to look good online. And like that, a once proud label became a way to shut people down. So what's the truth? Let's look at both sides of this debate. The positive view. Some people wear the label social justice warrior with pride. To them, it means speaking up when others stay silent, challenging racism, sexism, ableism, even when it's uncomfortable, advocating for systems that don't leave people behind. These are people who do the work. They organize protests, educate communities, change policies, raise awareness. They don't just post hashtags, they live the values. They understand that justice isn't neutral, it's active, and they act. But let's be honest, not all activism helps. Some people take a real cause and twist it into a performance. Think of someone screaming on social media without ever showing up offline. Cancel campaigns with no room for conversation or growth. People who critique others, but never reflect on their own behavior. This kind of activism often gets labeled as virtue signaling, doing it for praise, not progress. Call out culture, focusing on shame, not change. Overreach, where every disagreement becomes a personal attack. And yes, sometimes it's true. Not every justice post is helpful. Not every activist has done their homework. And not every person fighting for change is fighting in good faith. So where does that leave us? Let's get real. First, a positive example. In Flint, Michigan, local mothers, not politicians, raised the alarm about toxic water. They organized, documented, and forced the world to pay attention. Their activism saved lives. Were they emotional? Absolutely. Were they loud? Sometimes. But they were right. Another example. In Nigeria, the hashtag #EndSARS protests were led by young people demanding an end to police brutality. Many were dismissed as mere Twitter warriors, but they quickly proved otherwise. They organized peaceful protests, raised funds transparently, amplified their message globally, and brought the world's attention to systemic abuse. Despite facing violent government crackdowns, including a deadly shooting at the Lekki toll gate, their voices forced a national reckoning. The controversial SARS police unit was eventually disbanded, though at the tragic cost of young lives. On the other hand, there are social media moments where people went too far, harassing artists for wrong representation in a story, calling someone racist based on one sentence without context, demanding boycotts over minor disagreements. These are the stories that fuel backlash. They make justice look like judgment, and they make thoughtful people stay silent, afraid of getting it wrong. Here's what most people don't realize. Social media amplifies extremes. Platforms like X, TikTok, and YouTube are built to reward outrage, conflict, hot takes over hard truths. The more dramatic your post, the more likes you get. The more angry your comment, the more it spreads. This creates an echo chamber, where thoughtful voices get drowned out, where compassion loses to clicks, and where performative activism becomes more visible than real work. It's not that people care too much. It's that the platforms we use don't reward how they care. So, should you be a social justice warrior? Here's the real question. Should you fight for social justice? Yes. Should you be informed, kind, and consistent? Absolutely. But do you need to be loud on Twitter to make a difference? No. You don't need to argue in every comment section. You don't need to cancel everyone who disagrees. You just need to care deeply, learn constantly, show up when it counts, whether that's through your work, your relationships, your votes, your support, your silence in some spaces, and your voice in others. If someone calls you a social justice warrior, ask yourself, am I fighting for the right thing in the right way? If the answer is yes, then wear it with honor. Because warriors don't just make noise, they make change. Let's be clear. The world doesn't need more division. It doesn't need more angry tweets, viral takedowns, or culture wars. It needs justice. It needs people who care, not just online, but in real life. People who show up, people who listen, people who lead with empathy, and still hold power accountable. That's not weakness. That's not woke. That's courage. So whether you call yourself a social justice warrior or not, the real question is, what are you doing right now to make the world more fair? And who might you become if you did just a little more?